You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the July 17th, 2024 meeting of the Long Beach Budget and Finance Committee. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
So the financials were sent out to everybody through June, maybe last week sometime. Again, with the capital planning, some updating, which we're gonna have probably today.
And the updates are really just on the expenses to reflect what's been spent on against the capital plan. To see what is left remaining both to accomplish and to pay for.
And the only other update would just be the CCMG that was approved for that total cost. So I think we'll have to update that to that 643 number, 624 number. So we'll have to add that into this number.
For next year.
Yeah, just so we get a clear view of it all. Okay, Mark, any questions on the financials?
Related to the capital plan, I did get some information on Friday and I hope to get some good news this week from the Indiana Department of Health related to our septic permit for the public safety building. Well, I hope to hear something from them and we can get that project out to bid in the next 30 days. So hopefully I'll have a better idea budget wise what's going to be needed for the septic installation. My only other concern is I just recently learned that the HVAC in the upper deck here at the town hall, I have a company coming out to do some maintenance on the 4 furnaces and the 4 air conditioning units that are up there. I know we already had planned to replace one of the air conditioning units, but I'm sensing there's going to be an expenditure coming for some of the HVAC for the town hall. And I hope to have a better idea on budgetary what that's going to cost here in the next couple of weeks for you as well. And then we'll just have to come up with a plan to address that either yet this year or going into next year.
So Meg was mentioning to me before the meeting briefly about maybe needing a crane to assist with that, and if so, then it's more efficient to replace maybe one that you normally would defer until next spring, but because the crane is here to go ahead. Right now, that kind of expense is not in the capital plan.
Right.
But I will say that the general fund, it does have it has a healthy cash balance. And that is the first place that I would look for this particular project, to add as a revenue source then for that. We certainly want to protect the cash balance of the general fund as your bulk of revenue, of course, you receive every June and December. The town's done a great job of not into kind of temporary loan in April and May, while making tax credit come in, and we simply want to stay on that good path. But well, I don't know exactly what that cost would be. I do think that there's sufficient cash balance for that.
Thank you. And I hope to have some numbers for you in the next month or so once I get a better idea of the issues that need to be addressed upstairs. And you are correct, it's going to require a crane just because of the unfortunate state of the way that the town hall was redesigned back in 2001. There's no other way to get that equipment into the upper part of this building. It has to be lowered to the roof hatch of the town hall, which requires an actual crane to be rented and brought in to drop the equipment to the roof of the town hall.
Mark, do you remember, this is just, we were talking about this briefly, the pipes that we just had done in this building with Poston?
Yes, that was the backflow preventer in the garage. Yeah, I want to say that was just under $2,000, maybe $1,900. Originally, I think we had it projected out at about $3,500. That work's been completed, it was in the capital plan. We knew that was going to need to be replaced, and that work's been done.
Wow, once we're back in Civic, I'll look at this number. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Just a reminder for me. Okay. Otherwise, I think once we get the capital plan fully updated, which again, we're probably today, then we can do another look ahead. I think again, next year, we're gonna be okay by 26. It's a little, well, next year will be less in excess after the CCMG project. So for my comfort, would like to look at that some more now that we know we're for sure doing that project. So
Did we pull that large truck, that $350,000 truck out of 26?
I think I did have Trista remove that.
Down to 115s. And then Mark, after the meeting, can you, circle up with Meg and make sure? I was looking at the police, vehicle leases, making sure the capital plan properly reflected the various payments and the credit record thing.
Sure.
I'm concerned that the payment that was made on June 1st was an amount under the, I know it was an amount under the original amortization schedule. I feel though like with the trade-in that happened in February, that they should have given us a new schedule on that, so can you step by and look at that better than this?
Yeah, there shouldn't be any payments of the Port Price until this fall.
It's
So,
not, but it's on the original depository bank, and that if the vehicle was traded in, that lease should have been.
no, the Crossroad Bank, we still have those vehicles. So we own both those.
So then,
This was the third new one. So, no,
maybe can you just stop the difference and
Yeah,
make sure we've got it mapped out there?
okay, yeah, but we still have those costs out there.
right, unfinished business. Cash reserves and investment strategy for 24, so. Trista and I talked with Trust Indiana yesterday, which is the Indiana pool. And I should have distributed these to you guys, but the Horizon CD rates linger around 5%. This pool's at more, a little bit over 5.3% return. You can have one account or you can have a bunch of sub accounts, and you can call them what you want. It's very liquid where I can take our funds within that same day. I can put them in and take them out. It's just filling out a few pages to get signed up, and then I have access to their portal. You accrue interest daily. We would have a statement each month that shows the interest for us to record it. And then any costs are taken out before the rate is published. If we wanted to wire with Verizon, we would have a wire charge, but I just plan to do ACH. And you have access to it, the portal 24/7. The pool closes when the market does each day, so at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. our time, so any changes I would need would have to be made by 1 p.m. So to start it, I would just fill out the registration form. I think I would have access within 24 hours, and then Trista and I are gonna get together and redo the exercise of seeing how much is available in all of the funds. The only tricky part is just, which is no different than the CDs, of just keeping track of how much came from which funds and then making sure I put it back, as I withdraw it. So, Trista knows Valpo does it, they're, part of it. I'm gonna still research it a little bit, but I don't see any huge drawbacks to signing up for this and trying it. Our CDs were done at the end of June, mid-June. So I kind of missed out on 2 or 3 weeks here. Granted, it's accruing something at the bank, so we moved it back to our account, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. So if I can distribute this information statement, it's only a couple of pages, and then you guys can read through it and see if you have any questions.
So Trust Indiana is managed downstate, as you can expect. Purpose being to allow smaller communities to be able to pull their money together to earn better return on their investment. They use a variety of investments, all statutorily approved, just as the town would be able to use those same statutorily approved, investment avenues. It is very safe. And I don't have any qualms at all about the town using that instead of the CDs. It is nice that it's a little bit more liquid, more flexible,
It has some T-bills in there.
right?
Fire.
So I think it's a great idea.
Should be, yes. So when I look at the cash allocation, you got your $3 million looker that's on that cash allocation sheet. Have we plotted, you know, how much you think you want to put away already? Are you at that point yet, or?
Yeah, we've talked, Meg and I have talked about that. Obviously, we know that when the CD investments were made, it was done very broadly and quickly. We have some more finesse planned than that.
All right.
The nice thing about the Trust Indiana, because it is daily liquid available, is that we really could invest the majority of each fund's cash balance.
That's where I was going, yeah. So it sounds like it'd be, yeah, so we'll be in a way better position.
Yeah. Thankfully, our checking account has earned some interest now of recent, the last 2 years, and that's provided well, but that's still a couple % lower than what this trust would be, so.
Will we be doing that? And I've got a question for you later on about the water funds. I was confused at the bottom of that cash projection. There's some other
Yeah.
fund, you've got a cash balance up in the body of the
Right.
cash projection, then you've got another fund called water.
The capital improvement.
Is that an additional fund or what?
No, the utility, credit, yeah, we've got a large credit for, materials that we returned from our Lakeshore Drive project. And the company had said that they would take them back, however, that we could use that as a credit towards future purchases. That's what he, oh, okay, I thought that's what.
What I'm talking about is on your water fund, cash projection, fund projection, actual projected cash flow for 24. You've got a line underneath.
Right.
All the other funds have that reserve ratio shown, which is great, it shows you where you're at the end projected. Essentially, that's at 50%, which if I understand this right, you got an ending balance in 23 of 1.6, call it. You carried that forward to 24, so if I go over to the projected column, then you're projecting your ending balance of cash in that top part of this report at 879.
Right.
If there come,
Let me just say that really quickly. There's a couple things that I still want to check into about the water balance because of the way that the monthly transfers happen for the SRF loan and how that is or is not reported in this part of Civic. But nonetheless, you are reading correctly what you see there.
okay, so I'm a little confused about that capital improvement line then below
Right.
that. Is that an additional $500,000?
Yes.
It is.
So every month pursuant, I think it started when the SRF loan began, $5,000 is set aside from the water fund, operational fund, to this capital improvement fund. It's been like that for years. It's been growing balance
Well, that's why
and not been used.
4 years ago, when I started looking into some of this, I was trying to understand where we stood.
Right.
And at that point, we had like 1.4 or something like that in total, but
And so I thought it was important now it's always been in the civic reports that people have had, but it's a single line within the water.
yeah. Well, those reports were confusing at best.
Yeah.
To be truthful.
I thought it was important to now note this at the bottom so that we can keep an eye on that as well. That's available for capital projects also.
But that's where I'm,
Related to water,
okay.
and as then we use it, it will grow back again at that 5, as long as that 5,000 is still transferred every month. That ebb and flow will happen.
Okay, so right now we're projecting at the end of 24, again, these are projections, about 1.3, 1.4 in total balance at the end.
So
Are you including those dollars in this plan to do the trust fund down south?
that's my recommendation, yes, because
Yes.
we're investing
That's
lots of
a lot of money.
money as well as.
I don't know if we've done that to date with the CDs.
The, Yeah, the water fund, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, that was included.
Okay. And then I keep asking this question and getting varied answers. I thought when we talked to Carl 3 years ago, when we started looking at the water funding and the fact that the water board was gonna change from what it was to what we do now, which means the council controls it. That those funds didn't necessarily, you could potentially use some of those monies in other places. And I know you don't feel that way, but I think we need to clarify that succinctly because as we've said before, in 27, when the bonds are paid off for the water improvements, that charge that we have on the water bills every month, $20 or whatever it is for the capital, we're gonna try to do something with that, I would hope, rather than just negating it and saying, we don't need any more money. It's a user fee, which I think we could still hold on to some of that.
Right.
But I don't want to just accumulate in some water fund. That would make no sense at all. We should do something with that if the council so chooses.
Right.
Something constructive with it to help us fund some of these capital projects. In addition to that, I was of the opinion, and I could be mistaken, that some of this big balance that we're sitting on could be used for other things as well, not just water improvement projects.
So we can't, Carl and I agree on it completely, maybe it's just been the way that's been communicated. We can't just go to the water fund and pay for paving of the street. There has to be some nexus tied to it. We can though, for example, when the clerk treasurer's office outside of Diane works on the bank rec, for example, to make sure that the financials are covered. When Meg works on investing some of the water money, in Trust Indiana, there are lots of things that affect the operation of the water utility that aren't necessarily captured right now in the expenses that occur when Mark does some supervision. So as long as there is some arguable nexus to why there's expense assigned to it. So for example, 5% random numbers, right?
Yeah.
5% of Mark's salary could come out of water. A portion of one of Meg's other staff members oversaw could come out of water also. So yes, there are ways for other expenses to be put there in a very legitimate, reasonable fashion. And use that available resource that the fund is.
Yes, it seems to me that, accumulating wealth in those accounts is not, I don't think that's the mission of the water department or the town. So at some point, we need to reconcile that. We either lower the rates so that we're not accumulating that much every year, or we figure out a way to be creative about it and use something.
So the best procedure for the expiration of the portion fee that you're talking about would be to do a good comprehensive plan review of what the next infrastructure piping specifically is needed in the town. A rate study is typically, what we would call the overarching process of that. So that we can say, okay, in 3 years, we know we have this mile of piping that needs to happen. And so then we build up that fee until we can pay for that project. As long as there's a basis for that, the fee will continue to be legitimate and it should be proportional to the expenses that are needed. So we'll have to think about what we know already your infrastructure is, what part is aging, when it's aging out, and when it's time.
Absolutely, and I don't have to disagree with that at all. So it's just a word telling. It seems to me like accumulating balance is just accumulating balance. I mean, that was one of our faux pas that we did, years ago. We reacted to emergencies, we didn't plan, and then all of a sudden, we get in trouble and have to pay for something, not the water stuff, but just in general.
Right.
So we're planning better, but I'd like to plan for the balances as well, including what we do with that user fee come 27.
Jen?
The only other thing would be on the cash balance projections, and it says it's on. Yeah. On the cash balance projections, and I know you got some things highlighted here, and I'm trying to understand what I'm looking at, Tristan, maybe, what's that little AA mean?
The AA fund that we did an additional appropriation along the way, was just a reminder to know that, for example, in the water fund, we did an additional appropriation of $70,000 earlier in the year to help cover the generator.
But it's in the above numbers.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a note.
It's just a
Yeah,
no.
yeah, it doesn't affect the balances.
That's right.
That's what, yeah, I was just confused. I couldn't figure it out.
Sorry.
And then like on your, I don't want to burden you guys with all this stuff. Are we gonna, so analyze the capital plan, then it's important to understand where we're at with these projections so we can balance those two things.
They're tied and linked together in the overall Excel workbook. The part that Megan and I need to finish up that we didn't get to this morning is including all of the expenditures that have actually happened on the left side of the capital plan, so that we see how much of the assigned revenue is left available still. The expenses, though, on the fund projection sheets are up to date through the end of June.
Okay,
So, if you had the choice of looking at the fund projection of the capital plan page as to the most up-to-date accuracy, it would be the fund projection,
gotcha.
just for today.
No, that's fine. And I'm not trying to press you. I'm curious. I'm trying to understand it all. Because my favorite analysis is obviously where are the balances and what can we afford? So we're not in a position to talk about that this morning. It sounds like we better do that in the future. Is that what you-
The August meeting, just in
Okay.
the next, that's gonna be.
Oh, yeah, because our,
There's a few things about the way this whole workbook flows I'm not very happy with, that they're trying to fix that this morning. We've got to come to something a little different. The point is to be able to enter data one time and have all of us populate, and there's a left turn with the right turn, and you gotta get that.
Well, we're miles ahead of where we used to be, so I'm proud of what you've done. I just, the ultimate game is to try to figure out what you can afford, so. Yeah.
yes, our next meeting is August 7th at 1 p.m.
Okay.
We mentioned it. Okay. So, rainy day fund. I think probably that will go hand in hand with us talking about the cash we have to invest.
And hopefully deciding how much of any other funds capital then, well, really general fund, you want to transfer to rainy day and hold it there instead.
Okay,
Excuse me.
Would that necessarily mean that that money wouldn't be in the Indiana trust, or you would still?
No, it would still be in the trust.
Just where you, yeah,
And I do think it's important to have a robust rainy day fund, and you certainly need to add to it. Just always keep in mind that at any point, the way to spend the money is simply the fact that you had a governmental spending need. So it very easily, when needed, can come back out of the rainy day fund. You would simply spend on like the general fund, it's how it would function.
it doesn't negatively affect how DLGF looks at your balances in terms of your levy though in the future, right? If you all of a sudden accumulate a bunch of money in there, does that negatively affect
No,
what they'll do for you on the levy? No?
no, as long as you, budget to show that you need the max levy, that's big, yeah, there's no penalty for it. It is seen by creditors and the rating agencies as a positive factor to have a healthy rainy day fund. So,
sewer expense. The question was, should we be building that into capital plan? I think Trista could reiterate that until we get a more definitive of anything going on, unless somebody has a different opinion.
we had emailed with Chris, a couple of weeks back, he confirmed that it's really just stagnant. Nothing's moving forward in any fashion. If something does start to occur legally, we will have plenty of notice and be able to plan and respond accordingly. And adjust the capital plan, dip into some of the cash balances. And on top of that, then there's such a wide variety of potential options. If we did have to pay something, one, how much it's gonna be, and secondly, over what period of time. It's good to know that it's hanging out there, but it's just nothing to reserve dollars for us.
Budget, is there anything we want to go over today or, I think with the individuals we have present, I think we can work on it. But if you guys think that's good exercise,
Mark, as a quick update, I was explaining to Mike earlier that the, non-property taxes will be predicted by the DLGF here within the next week or so, meaning gas tax for MDH and LRS, the income taxes both for CEDA and lead. The DLGF gives a prediction every year for that on which we can rely. We are able to now predict what the maximum levy is for the property taxes that we'll be able to request for next year. The state statute imposed in 23 already dictated that, the growth quotient would be 4% for 24 and 25. Typically, we have to wait until about this time of year for the state to release the growth quotient, but we know that is right. So we're at a spot where we can sit down and Megan and I will do that and talk through predicting that the rest of the miscellaneous revenues is now receives. One very small example in that is the fact that, for example, the golf cart registration fees will be on its 2-year cycle next year for collection, and so we'll make the adjustment for that in a revenue prediction. As well as, building permits and all those kinds of things. So at the August Budget Finance Committee, we'll be able to give you all what the state calls the Form 2, which is simply the revenue prediction form that they use. And be able to compare that then against the budget that people have requested so far. Right now, the general fund as entered for requests at the department head meetings is 13% higher than this year 2024 budget. That number in total will be too high, and at some point we'll have to look and see where some things can be trimmed or adjusted. And I say that only in reference to the general funds. Other funds, some are held very steady. Riverboat, for example, is steady in the budget again, as presently listed. So there's room potentially to move some things, and that's part of what the August meeting will need to entail, is to look through the details of the needs that we have, make sure we can plug those in, and then add some wants on top of that. And we'll have the revised Form 1 for the expenses to be able to look through all of that. As well, I'm gonna clean up some of my, which I apologize for last time, some of that highlighting and things that were some holdover notes from last year's organizational undertaking, and it'll be a little easier to read for the rest of you.
well, this is what we said, after June, we would have a better idea of where we're at. So just finishing updating.
We're still on track to get it entered in the gateway by the end of August, which gives you the 10-day notice requirement you need to have your first reading and public hearing in September. And then your vote and second reading and vote at the October meeting. So everything is still on track time-wise.
I'm still getting notices from the state on occasion, just because mine is still in the database.
Yeah.
There was some new statutes that's relating to contract notification. I think we briefly touched on it somewhere along the line. I just don't want us to get in trouble. So apparently, like if we have a contract for fire, for instance, that needs to be posted on Gateway somewhere.
It's gonna be uploaded.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are on top of that.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think that affects Mark's contracts with Doom and Michiana relative to the police though, right? That's, I didn't read that from the summary.
I'll double check.
I don't think it does.
I'll double check. Mark, is there anything you want to add on the budget?
No, I think once you get the worksheets updated and that, just take a look at them and we agree to, discuss it.
Laura, did you? No. And we did skip Roman numeral number 2, and I would like to go back.
Okay.
We've talked before that
Project.
this is a project that we really need to get moving forward, because it's gonna Although, I'm sorry, as I say that, let me refresh my memory a minute. Mark has discussed with us already that, he and Renee have had a start in this.
With the street and water as well, or at least with streets.
Yeah, all the departments. Mhm.
So I think maybe we should schedule a separate meeting, just, not necessarily the budget finance committee. Myself, Meg, Mark, and then whoever else wants to be involved. And look at the information that Mark and Renee have put together. For the capital asset list, compare it to what the state board requires. And potentially then be able to open up last year's annual financial report and add information in. We've not gotten notice of an audit. We are able to still unlock our AFR and then re-upload it if there are edits to make, and this would be an area. The state board will actually be looking to see what assets we have listed, rolling stock, pipes in the ground, buildings. So to get this back on the top of our radar, and of course, now we're getting the budget, and that's an important thing too, but, if we can get attention paid to it, get our list updated, it will reduce the chance of the state board making a comment from the audit, which would be very fast. If there is, once we look at the list, any need to go back and get some historical costs to be able to discuss depreciation, we can figure all that out once we see where this is at, and we can focus in that on the best time to be spent on which parts to be updated. If that makes sense.
We want to, within the budget meeting and the timeframe for September, October, what do you think? When would you wanna, sooner than later?
Oh, I think the smaller group should sit down like next week or something. And we see where we're at, so then we can make a plan going forward. With the goal maybe of being done yet in August.
So there's some dates of work for you and.
Okay. And then once that is in place, then from the clerk treasurer responsibility perspective, we'll have to double check the ordinance that council passed. I think that it says. No, I'm not sure if it says every year or every other year. That the clerk's office is responsible for updating and doing inventory of that. We can talk about how that has to work. The point of that is that it prepares you then for the next year's AFR that's due in February finally. To know that you do still possess everything that you believe the town does possess. From there forward, then you're simply adding to the list as things are either purchased or sold. And it should naturally take care of itself. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for switching back to that.
Anybody have anything they would like added to this agenda for the August new business? I don't really have any, so. Any other comments? No one is online.
One thing is better on too.
Okay, we will adjourn then. Thank you all.